Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the Building Climate Resilience, Transforming Communities Through Green Workforce Development. I'm Jaleesa Gilmore. I'm the Senior Program Manager of Environmental Justice Programs at Groundwork USA. I'm also joined by my co-host, Renee Mazurek. I'm the Resilient Communities Manager at River Network, who will also be co-hosting this webinar with me and managing the Q&A. So for those of you who have been with us before, you know the drill. Keep yourself on mute. There's a lot of us here. Introduce yourself in the chat. What's your name? What's your organization? Where are you joining us from? Okay. All right. And so thanks again for joining us. This webinar session is hosted by the Urban Waters Learning Network. It's co-coordinated by the River Network and Groundwork USA, and we're funded by the EPA and the National Park Service. And so the Urban Waters Learning Network is a nationwide peer-to-peer network of people and organizations working to conserve, restore, and revitalize America's urban waterways. So feel free to check out our website, urbanwaterslearningnetwork.org, and also join us on our online platform, Mobilize. Great. And so as you all know, today is the last session of our series, our learning series. This one is the Building Climate Resilience, Transforming Communities Through Green Workforce Development. In this series, hosted by the Urban Waters Learning Network, we highlighted a variety of strategies for community-based organizations to help their communities anticipate, prepare for, and respond to climate risks, from flooding to coastal storms and drought, with a focus on protecting community members who are the most vulnerable to climate threats. And so today's session, we're really focusing on community-led transformation through green jobs, discovering how communities have successfully built green workforce programs to transform their communities while bridging climate and economic goals. And so we'll hear from experienced practitioners and community leaders who really have harnessed the power of green jobs to transform their communities. We all know that, to work towards climate resilience, we need to work together as communities. Community-based organizations, community leaders are leading the way, and we really need jobs, and green workforce is a good way to start to plan for that and really acknowledge that we need to build the communities that we desire in the future and that are resilient to a changing climate. And so with that, before we get started, I just want to launch the first poll. And I'll hand it over to Renee to launch that poll for us.
Thanks, Jaleesa. The poll is launched. There are 3 questions in this first poll. What's your primary affiliation? Is your agency or organization a part of a member-focused workforce development group like AmeriCorps or another core program? And what's your level of experience with climate resilience and green workforce programs? And this is just to give us and our presenters today a little bit of a sense of who is in the room with us today. So we're about 52% participation rate. So go ahead and take another maybe 30 seconds or so to go ahead and finish the poll. Again, there are 3 questions, so make sure that you scroll down and take a look at all of those. 76%. Give it another maybe 15 seconds. And 3, 2, 1. I'm going to go ahead and close the polls, and let me go ahead and share those results. So for poll number 1, we are kind of almost split at the highest level between local, county, or state government and community-based organizations. We also have some national nonprofits, some federal government, tribal government, and learning institutions. If you did answer other, please feel free to drop that in the chat and let us know who you're affiliated with. Is your organization a part of the member-focused workforce development group? Yes, 17%, 82% no. Other, 1%. Go ahead and share in the chat. And then what is your level of experience with climate resilience and green workforce programs? 58% have some experience, 36% have no experience, 4 have a lot of experience, and 2 are on the other again. So please, if you answered other for any of these, go ahead and share in the chat. And a lot of times our chat is pretty rich and conversations start going, but thank you for being here. We know that this is going to be an engaging and rich conversation today. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and hand it back to Jaleesa.
Thanks, Renee. Great. So I can introduce our great speakers that we have today for this webinar. So our first speaker is Amelia Rose. Amelia Rose has been the Executive Director of Groundwork Rhode Island since 2014, overseeing programs related to environmental job training and employment, brownfield redevelopment, stormwater management, composting, youth engagement, and contributing to the development of the overall organization. Amelia formerly worked at the Environmental Justice League of Rhode Island for 6 years. She sat on the Providence's Sustainability Commission from 2012 to 2022, helping create Providence's first sustainability action plan. Originally from Northern Virginia, Amelia has also worked for the Unitarian Universalist Association and the Washington Interfaith Network in Washington, D.C., and Toxics Action Center in Boston. She has a BA in anthropology from Mary Washington College in Fredericksburg, Virginia. We're also joined by Devin Hamilton. And Devin has dedicated his career to developing workforce strategies for communities that are facing systemic barriers to employment. Since joining Power Corp's PHL in 2017, he has led the implementation of training programs for young adults that lead to careers in energy, green infrastructure, and youth development. Devin believes programs like Power Corps Philly play a key role in supporting underserved communities and creating pathways to success and economic opportunity. Devin was born and raised in Philadelphia and holds an MBA from LaSalle University. And last but not least, Steve Affat. Steve Affat is the Senior Program Manager overseeing service, compliance, and development of Corps members. Originally from Maryland, he relocated to Brooklyn in 2006, following a career in media, marketing, and client services. After 10 years in the private sector, he refocused his efforts to pursue his lifelong passion for environmental education and stewardship. His volunteering efforts in various Brooklyn-based green spaces led him to the New York Restoration Project, where he completed 2 AmeriCorps service terms, eventually making his way to the New York City Compost Project. And he now joins the Green City Force family, bringing with him a host of experience from various industries, organizations, and applicable practices. A father of 2, he enjoys planetary science and building small-scale portable gardens using recyclable materials. And so I'm very happy to have all 3 of them join us with their wealth of experience. And before we get into presentations, we have one more poll for you all, and I'll hand it back to Renee.
Thanks, Jaleesa. This is just a single question poll. As Jaleesa mentioned, we have, this is the 6th in our series, 6th and last in the series on building climate resilience. And this question is, are you interested in networking with others who are working on equitable climate resilience? So we sorry, I thought I hit the launch button. There it is. Now you should be able to see it. It's the simple answer, yes or no, or not sure, keep me informed. We're thinking of ways to engage people in the coming year, including a mobilized group where, people can talk to one another, we can share resources and things like that. So if you're interested, go ahead. If you're not able to answer the poll for some reason, you can go ahead and drop your email address in the chat. You can private message it to me. I'm collecting all of these from all of the sessions, and we will be reviewing that and taking next steps in the coming weeks. We are almost at 80% participation. We'll give you about 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2, and 1. And poll, I'm going to share the results. Overwhelmingly, you can see 70% yes, almost 30% of you not sure. So, but we will keep you informed. We're not going to automatically add you to a group or anything like that. And so just keep tuned for upcoming opportunities. I think that's it for me. Jaleesa, back to you.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Renee. And with that, I'll hand it over to our first speaker, Amelia.
Great. Let me share my screen. I'll put it in slideshow mode. All right. You see it?
Yep, perfect.
Great. All right, this is just my title page, so skip. Groundwork, Rhode Island. We are based in Providence, Rhode Island. We work statewide. It's a small state, so it's easy to do. Our mission, this is our mission statement. We're focused on building healthier, resilient, more equitable urban communities and improving the physical environment and creating economic opportunities for residents through job training, employment, and social venture programs. We've really leaned into that mission of the employment pathways, job training, social venture programs kind of over the course of our last 14 or 10 years or so that I've been at the organization. Groundwork Rhode Island, we're part of the Groundwork USA network, which we joined in 1999 or early 2000, that timeframe. And before that, we were Keep Providence Beautiful. So for 20 years before that. So we've been an organization for over 40 years. And this is where we are with our, our mission statement now. So I'm going to be going through all of our programs really have to do with this core mission. Our adult job training program, our ground core landscape program, harvest cycle compost, and our green team, which is our youth program. So I'll be talking about all of those things. So when we joined the Groundwork USA network, that was also a time when the EPA started its Brownfields job training grant, which some of you on the call might be familiar with. Groundwork Providence, we were Groundwork Providence at the time, and now Groundwork Rhode Island. We've had this Brownfields job training grant for off and on since that time, so for almost 25 years, and have trained hundreds of people. The Brownfields job training grant is really focused on hazardous waste cleanup, but that's sort of set the framework for all of the work that we do, even though now we've sort of moved away a little bit from the hazardous waste cleanup or lead remediation and that type of thing, and focus much more on stormwater management, sustainable landscaping, tree or urban forestry, composting, and things that we can do as an organization. We're not in the business of doing hazardous waste cleanup ourselves, so we wanted to figure out both the training piece, but also how do we employ people ourselves within the organizational structure of Groundwork Rhode Island. So just to give a little snapshot of what we're doing now, in 2023, we trained 62 adults and young adults in our job training program. This includes a couple of partnerships that we have with different organizations where we sort of create a training program that's very specific to that client base. So we work with people who are formerly incarcerated. We work with a group that's all young adults. We work with a Spanish speaking group. So we sort of try to cultivate different partnerships to meet the needs, the kind of like specific needs of different groups in the community. And we offer OSHA 10, the OSHA 40 HAZWOPER, lead RRP, which is the renovation, remodeling, and painting certification. It's another federal certification, EPA. The Center for Watershed Protection's Clean Water Certificate. And then we focus a lot on stormwater, wastewater, urban forestry, landscaping. And the training program, we try to connect people with outside employers, just regular employers out in the field in the environmental services sector, including, you know, arborists and forestry companies, tree companies, but also hazardous waste handling and lead abatement companies. But we also hire people ourselves. So we have a social venture called Ground Core, with no S, more like core business versus core, you know, member program. And we currently have 8 employees, and we do all sorts of projects around the state, around green infrastructure installation, tree planting, maintenance, landscape maintenance, all sorts of different things. So in Ground Core, we started in 2010 as an opportunity for, again, kind of having that employment pathway, not just being a trainer, but also providing employment for people in the community to do work also where they live. Now let me figure out how to, oh, there we go. We also have our youth workforce development. We've kind of leaned into that also in terms of, it's not just a youth development program, but it's really the piece of it being an employment program and being like a career pathway type of program. Our green team has sort of evolved over time, but these are just some pictures of our, you know, Groundwork USA has a great relationship with the National Park Service. We also at Groundwork Rhode Island have a great relationship with the U.S. Forest Service and send some youth to the White Mountains in New Hampshire every year. And then there's a picture of youth that went to Yellowstone National Park with the Park Service. So we have 25 youth that we employ in the summertime. And then in 2023, we've had 12 youth who stay with us in a year-round program. And they do all sorts of like hands-on projects, stewardship, education, and enrichment programs. And there's definitely a divide in terms of like what types of projects our youth do versus the adult program, with the youth not using power tools and that sort of thing. But there's still a lot of things that the youth can do. They help a lot with outreach and communications, as well as tree stewardship, watering, and that sort of thing. I'm having trouble with the, oh, there we go. Yeah. Ooh, go back. So some of the things that we do, I think actually maybe I missed talking about one thing. Oh, goodness. Sorry about that. Oh yeah, here we go. So green team. All right, sorry, I'm having trouble with my slides. So the other social venture that we run is called Harvest Cycle Compost. So this is like Ground Core. It is an earned income strategy for our organization. Is a subscription-based composting service. So we have subscribers who pay us to pick up food scraps from their home or small business. We have over 600 subscribers right now. We have both a pickup service and a drop-off service. We have processing sites, aggregation points where other haulers pick up the food scraps. We divert lots and lots of food from the landfill, food scraps and leaves and that sort of thing. And it's also an employment pathway for some of our both youth and our adult job training graduates. So this is something that, you know, we have people who are doing the hauling. So they're going around on bikes and picking up food scraps. You can see a picture of that there. And then we have people who are actually turning the compost and processing it manually. And this is a great opportunity for people who need sort of flexibility in their schedules. Not everybody is able to do a full-time employment that we work with, or there's other kind of barriers or reasons why they can't make over a certain amount of money for like public benefits or that sort of thing. So we work a lot sort of to create jobs for people who go through our program where we can fit people in based on like what their needs are. So that's one of the things that we work on. We're also opening a medium scale compost facility in Providence called the West End Compost Hub. We're hoping it opens this fall. And that will also be another employment opportunity and a training opportunity, really focused on food scrap composting. Okay, so some of the things that, you know, how we work with the communities, as I mentioned, our social ventures are an earned income strategy for our organization. So we do fee for service work that includes Harvest Cycle with our composting subscription service, but also people just hire us for their home, do residential jobs. Schools hire us to build gardens and things like that. And it's really, we try to spread the message that we're available. Ground Corps is available to do landscaping and building kind of projects through word of mouth and that sort of thing, and just through relationships in the community. We have a lot of grant funded projects. So from the EPA or from the Forest Service or from the Southern New England program, which is another EPA stormwater focused program, doing a lot of stormwater projects, excuse me, doing a lot of tree planting this year as well. And that's our grant funded work. So that funds a lot of what Ground Corps does. And then we translate those resources, that funding, into paid employment opportunities for local residents, both youth and adults. These are some examples of projects that we do in terms of climate resilience. Bioswales, we did this big project. If you can see my cursor, I'm not sure. We're calling them right-of-way bioswales or sidewalk bioswales, where we took out a lot of pavement. Usually these are 12 or 15 feet long and 4 feet wide along the sidewalk to stay ADA compliant on the sidewalk, but also create this green space. And then we actually do a curb cut to allow stormwater to infiltrate into this dugout pit that's like dug out about 4 or 5 feet and planted, has stone plants, and acts as a rain garden right on the side of the road. And this is something that we've done 57 of these in Providence. We did this with a SNEP grant, an EPA SNEP grant, over the past couple of years, and now we are maintaining them. So that's a Ground Corps job, and this is just a map of all the locations around Providence where we put them. And we used this also as a training opportunity for the job training program. So that's like an example of, some of the climate resilience work that Ground Corps is working on.
That's a lot of rain gardens, Amelia. I love it.
I know, 57.
Yeah, and about 4 minutes left.
Thank you. And so tree planting, we did, we've got a ton of tree planting money recently. So we did 644 trees planted in 6 different communities in Northern Rhode Island in 2023. So that's the most we've ever planted in 1 year. But we sort of do the soup to nuts tree planting, that we do the resident outreach. We are calling dig safe and doing the depaving and actually like the sidewalk tree pit prep, the planting, the watering and maintenance, and it's 3 years of stewardship that we commit to through our grants. So all of that involves many different aspects of the program, both our youth program, our training programs, and Ground Corps. Composting, I talked a little bit about this, but these are just some more pictures of kind of where we have drop-off sites. We've had a good success having drop-off sites for food scraps at public libraries in Providence, and we're looking to figure out ways to expand to some other cities with the same model of very hyper-local composting, where people have their food scraps and they stay in the community and then can be used as a resource in that community rather than going out elsewhere. And then this is the last slide, I believe. So just to give a kind of a sense of the employment opportunities. So Ground Corps we've just this is the first year in my 10 years of being at Groundwork Rhode Island that we've been able to employ Ground Corps year round. So we've added a winter program that includes professional development, but also some wintertime projects, hands-on projects that they're continuing. So that's full-time employment year round. Harvest Cycle is part-time employment year round. Canopy Crew is a new effort that we're collaborating with an organization called Garden Time that does, we work on a re-entry job training program together, and Canopy Crew is another kind of like very flexible, seasonal, part-time job. We're trying to get more funding so we can make it more of a full-time thing, but right now it's part-time, really focused just on tree stewardship, mulching, aerating soil, watering trees, mulching, or I've said these things already, but we're doing structural pruning and that sort of thing. And then lastly, our green team is year-round and part-time work for youth. So, and they engage in all sorts of different projects that they've mentioned. And these are just some pictures of people who have gone through our training programs and who are on our staff now. And I think that is it. And that's my contact information.
Yeah, thanks, Amelia. So many different opportunities for people to get involved in workforce development. All right. With that, I'm gonna hand it over to Devin.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. Yes. Okay. So hello, everyone. My name is Devin Hamilton. I'm from Power Core PHL. We're located in the Philadelphia area. I'm really happy to be with you today to talk about our program. So we believe in advancing community and connecting people to careers. So overview of our program, we were established in 2013 in partnership with the city of Philadelphia and AmeriCorps. We were more of like a legacy project for our former mayor, Mike Nutter. And we started in alignment with Philadelphia's Green City Clean Waters Initiative, which was a big initiative at the time to build out green stormwater infrastructure in the Philadelphia area to support the current, stormwater infrastructure. And so we were more of the workforce component so that as, everything was being built out, people in the community had opportunities to train to fill those, the jobs that were created for the project. More specifically, we engage out of school and out of work 18 to 30-year-olds in an immersive, paid 4 to 24-month program that results to connection to living wage jobs in energy, green infrastructure, and community-based careers. We really focus on individuals who are at risk for violence, and being victims of violence or being perpetrators of violence. And Philadelphia is one of the poorest of the large cities. And so, people, need opportunities. So we're one of the programs that, provide opportunities for people who, need additional training, resource, mentorship, and support. We run 3 programs and 1 social enterprise in Philadelphia, and we provide technical assistance to cities nationwide that are interested in adapting our model in their region. This work has resulted in the launch of Environmental Justice Corps in Buffalo, New York in 2021, the launch of Reading Climate Corps in Reading, PA in 2022, and the launch of Power Core Boston in 2022 as well. So these are the 5 main components of our model: cross-sector collaboration, youth adult engagement. I would say probably that is the most important, focusing on the young adults in our city. Service as a strategy. So we are an AmeriCorps program and use service as a part of our strategy. Career pathway coordination. So connecting individuals to career pathways and career connected education, the training, certifications, and things that people need to, be successful in their career. So these are our 3, outside of the technical assistance and social enterprise, these are the 3 main components of our larger Philadelphia program. So Trust is an urban farm-based healing initiative for justice-involved young adults and young adults vulnerable to gun violence. Foundations is an AmeriCorps program engaged, engaging underemployed or unemployed or underemployed young people in crew-based environmental and community-based projects. Foundations program offers a full-time, work experience, professional development, supportive service, and career exploration. And then the final phase is our career training phase. Is industry specific. It's advanced training in tracks such as green stormwater infrastructure, urban forestry, solar, masonry, park rangers, and youth work. And these are just some pictures from individuals in different phases of our program. One's doing a service project, one is involved in OSHA training, and the one on the far right is a climbing training that we offer through our urban forestry program. So for individuals that are going through our program, this is kind of what it looks like. I know it's a lot on this slide, but if you look at the top right, the top left, so people can directly enter the program if you're a young person, 18 to 30, have a high school diploma, and looking for a career. You could apply, so anybody in the city can apply. We do, really encourage people who have court involvement to apply. And then we have a program trust that I mentioned before that specifically targets individuals who are court involved. People are able to start immediately, get paid. They're able to do group therapy. We're working with individuals, the judges, the probation officers to get the supports that they need. And so it's kind of a foundations program that kind of gets people who probably the most vulnerable to get the tools they need to be successful in foundations, because foundations is a pretty big commitment. So those are the two feeders into our foundations program. Our foundations program is directly below. It's an opportunity to earn, learn, and serve while exploring career options and preparing for career training. It's full-time paid, crew-based AmeriCorps service supporting community-based green spaces, water systems, and urban farms, and more. So it's about 4 months. We run 2 cohorts in the spring and the fall. Individuals who complete their term of service are able to get an education award for $1,600 to go towards college if they choose. We also, people who finish get additional points on the civil service exam if they end up applying for a city position. So people who graduate our foundations program have the option to exit. So some people end up going back to school. Some people want to go straight into work. But a lot of people end up going into our career training phase, which is a more sector specific on the job training that has a lot of credentialing and technical content involved. It's about 6 months. We have 2 parts of the career training phase: our fellowships and industry academy. Fellowships are individual placements at host organizations, kind of similar to an internship. The industry academies are, more the technical training. We have different areas that people can go into. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about our green stormwater infrastructure program in a partnership with the water department. I have the solar training, urban forestry, masonry, park ranger, and youth work. And the goal of those academies are to prepare people to, go straight into employment upon exiting. Another thing I just wanted to mention is just our demographics. So, the people in our program are 95% Black, 4% Latinx, 70% men, 50% court involved, and 40% are parents. So I just wanted to highlight one of our, for the rest of the presentation, our Green Stormwater Infrastructure Academy, because I think it highlights our kind of cross-sector collaboration and partnerships. We run it in partnership heavily with the water department, our local water department in Philadelphia, PWD. We also work closely with the Sustainable Business Network of Greater Philadelphia. And we also work with a private contractor, Rodriguez Consulting, who they do a lot of our training and also hire. And we also have other, employment partners involved that hire our graduates as well, but wanted to highlight these three. So our Green Stormwater Infrastructure Academy performs GSI maintenance. They receive pre-apprenticeship training for skills within the water operations. They earn their OSHA 30 driver's license and other industry credentials. So we have two crews, and between the two, they complete 50 to 98 work orders per month, depending on the size of the workload and the individual S&P. So they're doing, direct work for the water department that, the water department doesn't have capacity to do. So some of the S&P types, stormwater trees, tree trenches, bump outs, planter boxes, smaller rain gardens. And some of the work includes, surface maintenance, so removal of weeds, sediment, other debris that would hinder the operation of the system, mulching, pruning trees within the S&P, vegetation cutbacks, weeding, and invasive removal. So they're doing that work, 5 days a week. They're working 35 hours, and while they're getting, professional development training and technical training.
And Devin has about 4 minutes left, so feel free to drop your questions in the chat for him and we'll get to it at the Q&A.
And so the graduates of the Green Stormwater Infrastructure Academy are eligible to apply for PWD or Water Department's local apprenticeship program. And so I think it's a successful program because the skills and things that they're learning while they're at Power Corps directly relate to what they would need to do as an apprentice. So it makes them uniquely qualified for the jobs. So these are just two examples of how it looks, and breaking it up into phases. So phase 1 is the pre-apprenticeship phase, which is with us as a part of our Green Stormwater Infrastructure Academy. Phase 2 would be applying to the water department and becoming a community apprentice. And then there's ways for people to, be promoted into a higher level position. So, they can move into a grounds maintenance, grounds and facilities maintenance worker 1, and 2, for this particular pathway. We also do the same thing with engineering positions that the water department is looking to fulfill. So people are coming directly out of Power Corps into apprenticeship jobs and then moving into, as they graduate as an apprentice, into civil service positions for the city. So this is just some statistics for this particular pathway into PWD. So Power Corps alumni is comprised of 57% of PWD apprentices hired since 2014. 69% of alumni have been hired since 2014 have retained their employment with PWD. We have had some that have moved on to other opportunities outside of the water department, which we still consider a success, but people are generally are staying. And so we make up, these are active PWD apprentices by Power Corps alumni status. So we make up about 62% actively right now. These are the PWD hires over by year. So we've kind of stayed steady and we're looking to grow out of that specific area. We also do place people in other private sector roles. And then just, by race and ethnicity, 90% of individuals placed into the water department are Black, 10% are Latino, which if you look at numbers across the United States, is very heavily white male. And so we're helping the water department to diversify their hires as well. Just real quick, this is Aaron Kirkland. He's one of our success stories. He's someone who had involvement in the criminal justice system, used our program as a tool to get into the water department, and was so successful in the water department that he ends up overseeing one of the departments. And so it's a really cool thing where, you have a Power Corps alumni hiring other Power Corps alumni, and it kind of creates a network amongst alumni that, you know, they have individuals in these specific fields that are hiring, you know, people coming out of the program. And finally, just wanted to highlight our success. So 92% of graduates move into career pathway employment. 4% in the program. So our recidivism rate is 4% compared to citywide 45%. 40% of our budget goes directly to members in the form of pay, you know, things like SEPTA passes, direct training, certifications. So far, we've had 850 participants. Above 850 participants, we've planted over 10,000 trees, and over 6,000 acres of land have been treated since we started. Here's my contact information. In addition to my colleagues, if anyone is interested in learning more about technical assistance or some of our career pathway build outs, you could contact me or Daniel Lawson or Gentress Joint, who oversees our workforce development program. Thank you, everyone.
Devin, thank you so much. I'm not sure if you're seeing the chat. There are a lot of questions in there for you, and I would encourage you maybe to get in there and you could answer some in the chat. While we're waiting for Stephen to pull up his slides, I can ask at least one of those questions. There's who teaches these trainings? Is it in-house or is it community college instructor, other individuals?
It's a mix of we have in-house staff that have a technical background that teach some of our like the technical training. We have some of our employment partners. For example, Rodriguez Consulting, who I mentioned, actually teaches a training on mapping, surveying, and he also hires. So we contract out with employers as well. So it's a mix of, you know, employers and staff, and employers kind of help us build out our training curriculum.
Thank you so much. And again, there are a lot of questions and a lot of kudos in the chat, so take a look.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Devin. With that, we'll pass it to Stephen.
All righty. Good afternoon, everybody. Am I coming through clear? Yeah. All right. Very good. This is great. Honestly, I've been checking the chat, also seeing all the questions coming up, and a lot of the work that y'all have been doing. It's also very similar to what we're doing at the Green City Force side. So honestly, I was like tuned in, very inspired by the work. So I appreciate y'all also sharing in this as well. And so we'll hop in for Green City Force. So Green City Force, we are also running an AmeriCorps program where we're primarily working with young adults aged 18 to 24. And so, yeah, I'll go ahead and just hop right into it. And so I'm Steve Fatt. I'm the program manager for the group. Working with Green City Force has been an amazing experience in that, again, we're doing very similar work to, you know, the work that you guys are doing over with PowerCorps as well as with Groundworks. And so, yeah, I'll hop right into it and just kind of like start with the mission, and then you know, we'll get right up into it. And so GCF's mission, Green City Force mission, is training young leaders to power a green and inclusive economy through service. And we say that in that Green City Force is rooted in these three foundations, all rooted in justice, right? And we're looking at social justice, economic justice, and environmental justice. Those are three pillars, if you will, that kind of give us the foundation for all of the work that we're doing, which at the end of the day is to empower, right, leaders, our young adults that are working into the next generation, to create these circular economies. And so this comes up by way of service, which we'll hop into here, right? And so the service experience, again, being an AmeriCorps program, we're looking at 6 to 10 month tracks. Members will come in either for a spring or a summer or winter track. And what ends up happening is they end up going through a program where upon completion of the program, they're kind of part of this large ecosystem that primarily focuses on and serves New York City Housing Authority. Authority. So that's NYCHA. And so it's NYCHA primarily looking at, again, young adults ages 18 to 24. Unemployment rates within NYCHA are extremely high. New York City, right, has all types of climate goals that are continuously changing. At the end of the day, when we're looking at trying to serve these communities, right, being NYCHA, as well as the New York City goals, we feel that we're a perfect place to kind of fit right in the middle in that sustainability and the overall health of the city, being that there's a large population of individuals living within New York City public housing. Those two things can't, we almost cannot have a healthy green city within New York City if we are not serving our public housing. And so one of the things, let me go, there we go. One of the things that leads us to working with NYCHA is, again, it's almost essentially a city within a city. And so just taking a moment with this image up on the screen, you guys can see that we have, with all these, at the top of all these buildings, we have tons of just open space. And NYCHA is I believe they're one of the largest landlords in the United States, right next to the United States military. I wish I had the numbers to cite here, but if we're citing up all of the acreage, it is, I want to say it's a chunk about the size of Boston, if you will, right? And so we've got millions of people in here, millions of individuals who are also unemployed. And so how do we find ways to bring folks into these local economies, right, from within these actual communities, right? And so stepping into a little bit of the NYCHA sustainability service goals, NYCHA as an individual organization or entity is looking at engaging the community. They have tons of different community engagement programs. Some of them are resident-led, some of them are led by the agency themselves. They tend to have different gardening and greening initiatives that pop up, energy efficiency programs, which tend to take place, but not without necessarily the education, and that's where Green City Forest steps in, and then composting, recycling, and waste management. And so these are all initiatives and goals that NYCHA has on their end. And again, taking into consideration the scale with which they're trying to put into action, it's a little bit of a tall order, right? And so being able to tap into and support NYCHA, right? Again, looking at folks that are within that community, we start looking at our young adults, and that's where Green City Forest comes in to kind of marry the sustainability goals of NYCHA with those of the city, right? And so we enter eco hubs. Powered by Green City Forest. Initially, when we our model is one where we have we had five farm sites, and we've been actively and intentionally shifting the thought process and even the naming to an eco hub, because a farm site is it's a farm site. Some folks will say, oh, it's just a farm site. You can go and that's someplace where you can get food. But an eco hub is something that is it's a little bit more all inclusive, right? And so when we're talking about an eco hub, it's a space that is shared. We're talking about ecology, economy, connecting the social justice, the food justice, and as well as the economic justice or environmental justice, and having that be an integral part of the community, right? And so I'll hop into some slides that also just share a little bit about what that model looks like. But the idea is that within these communities, it's one thing to come in and say, okay, we see New York City public housing, we see that they also have some of these sustainability goals. How can we align? It's another thing to say, well, within New York City public housing, what does that comprise of? That's comprised of individuals, it's comprised of families. And so it's comprised of residents. And so what is it that the residents are interested in? What is it that the residents wants? And how can we be a partner to residents in a way that that is a little bit more organic? And being outsiders, that's something where there's a lot of intention that we have to put behind, each of our steps. And so an eco hub, again, right, an outdoor community center where we can operate programs that support sustainable practices around food, water, waste, and energy. These are all these are all, let's say, practices or even resources that New Yorkers tend to have access to. But again, within New York City public housing, these are services that tend to not be served, right? These are underserved communities. And so how can we, again, create some type of circular economy where the inputs that come in from residents directly goes back and serves them? And so the eco-hubs serve as a space of youth development and workforce training, community engagement and cohesion, spaces where residents can come out. You know, we have a whole process and an ecosystem of residents coming down. We chat with them about the space, about the opportunities that are happening. Sometimes it's about actually growing produce. Sometimes it's about figuring out how to turn compost. Whatever the case is, we're essentially exchanging time and knowledge for produce, right? So residents have access to fresh produce. They take it up, they're cooking for their families, whatever the case is, and then they bring those food scraps back. So we can collect those food scraps, we can process that within the compost, and then that gets put back into the bed spaces, which again continues to serve the residents. If folks want to come out and learn how to sift, how to prepare the beds, aerate, whatever the case is, you name it, right? Tons of opportunities for folks to really just come out and really just engage. And so we have farm stands on a weekly basis where residents, again, they come through, and it's just this open exchange. Sometimes we have Harvest Fest where folks are coming out. We'll have pumpkin patches, photo booths, everything for people to come out, learn how to cook with pumpkin seeds, food demos, just whatever we can do to make the space open and welcoming, right? Access to healthy foods that comes by way of the farm, landscape transformation, which I'll hop into in the next few slides, and then again some of those ecosystem services. In that it's one thing to transform a landscape, it's another thing to work with it, right? And that's what we'll get into in the next few slides. And so the design principles for the eco hubs was looking at landscape transformation, right? So being highly visible, a space that folks are able to see, and seeing, honestly, in a lot of times, seeing is believing. A lot of the spaces within the NYCHA developments, if they are open spaces, they tend to be open lots, or if there is going to be a big project, it tends to be a basketball court. Nothing wrong with a basketball court because that's the space for recreation. But again, when we're talking about during the summertime, we have asphalt, pavement, lots of heat, right? And so being able to have a space that's highly visible and green, right, brings some of those ecosystem services, cooler weather. There's more biodiversity, right? There's you could sit down underneath the tree as opposed to sitting on a bench, just getting blazed out by the sun. And when it's appropriate, the same thing, lighting, right? Being able to feel comfortable and come into a space where you feel like there's lighting, you can see what's going on, and it's open, right? Accessible. A lot of community gardens and spaces tend to be gated and fenced off, and that kind of defeats the purpose of being integrated with the community when you literally have a physical fence, right? And so design principles going into the actual landscape.
Yeah, and
Ecosystem.
Stephen, being in
Yep.
New York City, I've definitely seen those community gardens gated off, so I really appreciate that. And so you have about 5 more minutes left.
Perfect. For sure. Thank you. So, more ecosystem services, rainwater runoff, looking at the differences between having acres of soil and raised beds and then actual landscape around, versus, again, just asphalt, right? And so being able to mitigate rainwater runoff, also working with DEC and with some of the bioswales around the city as well. Just looking at other opportunities to expand outside of the developments and have opportunities for the members as well. Supporting pollinator habitat and pedestrian corridors, and again, just local ecology, having a actual ecosystem and economy going for residents that tend to not have access to that without having to pay. Right. Spoke a lot about community engagement. Right. And so I'm going to move forward just a little bit more, just to make sure we're good on time. Impacting community. Right. And so when we have our members coming through, we're up to about 50 members coming in for a cohort. Right. So 50 members, 6-month term, twice, so about 100 members in a year. And I want to get some updated numbers here. I know this is from an older report, but within a season, we're looking at about 153,000 pounds of produce distributed. This was cumulative up to 2019. 122,000 pounds of food scrap collected. 28,000 visits. Those are individuals coming out to the weekly farm stands, right, to come down and secure produce, and then 4,000 students educated in farm-based learning. So these eco hubs are a space. They're essentially the training grounds for our members that are coming through, in that they are coming into the program, getting exposure into urban agriculture. We have different types of infrastructure projects. You can see in the background, there's a high tone that folks were able to build up in one of the last seasons to extend the growing season, right? And just every project that we can pull together in terms of urban ag, be it solar panels to generate electricity, or even going through and doing the bed reconstruction, just having hands-on experience so that folks are learning through service. Right. And so the overall program model is bringing members into the service corps. Again, 18 to 24, coming into a 6 to 10 month term. And then graduation is the goal, right? Getting folks through the program and then becoming a part of alumnihood. So being a part of the Green City Force alumni, as well as an AmeriCorps alumni, you essentially have access to a very large network of opportunities, essentially. And so within the GCF environment specifically itself, the service term involves access to the service team, right? So that's myself. We have service team leaders that are out on each of the eco hub sites, a social work team, a career services team to help folks that are working either towards graduating for college or getting further along in their career, and then a social enterprise team for folks that are very much interested in continuing with the work and just being more aligned with the sector in terms of either some of the energy efficiency partnerships or urban agriculture partnerships that we have, and then again just the ongoing coaching and support that comes with being an alumni of I think we're at 600 plus now of folks that are really just continuing to push it forward. And so I know I'm short on time, so I'm just gonna blaze through this really quickly. But essentially, members come into the program. We spend a good about 2 weeks just getting oriented to the space, bringing folks into community, where we're running through sessions such as what does it mean to be an AmeriCorps member? What does it mean to be representing AmeriCorps? What does it also look like to be together in community? What does it look like to be together in a space where where folks are looking to offer up feedback? So we'll have sessions in emotional intelligence, emotional regulation, cover letters, interviews. What does it look like to show up on time? All those things, in the orientation and boot camp, to really get folks into that place where they're ready to then, grab their AmeriCorps uniforms and officially enter service. We run through the service program. And then upon successful completion, again, being able to get graduated and working towards placing folks with any of our partners, right? So technical training, very similar to much of what PowerCorps had mentioned earlier, as well as groundworks with the Ocean 40s, the composting, access, energy efficiency, solar. So I'm gonna keep moving. Getting folks to be coming through the program. The goal essentially is to have everyone be a better version of themselves. So that, again, being a leader in this space, a lot of folks maybe might be coming into entry-level positions, entry-level jobs, but having more of the self-confidence, the self-awareness, and the know-how to really navigate through and use maybe those entry-level positions as stepping stones to jump off and kickstart their careers. Sectoral focus, just to wrap it up, being that we're primarily focused on urban agriculture and energy efficiency. We've seen a little bit of a shift in both the opportunities as well as the interest for our members coming through. And so it's going to be an interesting time in the next few years, seeing as how we will be probably stepping a little bit away from the agriculture and produce careers and a little bit more into energy efficiency and building infrastructure. But it's all, we'll keep things going as we see fit, because again, the goal is to be serving our communities, and seeing what that need is definitely informs the direction that we're going in. And there we go, y'all. That's it. Hopefully on time. We have some left for some questions.
Yeah, wow. Thanks so much, Stephen. That was great. And so, yeah, thank you to all our speakers and everyone who joined. I just want to say, please take a moment to complete our evaluation form, and then we'll get to the Q&A right now, and I'll pass it to Renee.
Thank you. And thanks to all the presenters. Amazing work. And I hope that you're seeing all of the comments in the chat saying the same. There are a lot of questions about funding. And so I kind of I'm going to group a lot of them together into one. Where do you secure funding to support workforce development? So to pay for the workforce, and also, like the pipeline and getting your workforce trainees into jobs. And I would just add to the funding sources question, like how do you make sure that it's sustainable and you have sustainable funding sources? And anyone, I think that was a question for all of you. So anyone can jump in here.
Well, I can start. I have a lot more gray hair than I did 10 years ago because of figuring out ways to keep this sustainable. So it's really just for us, it's grant writing. So the baseline program, adult job training program for us is funded by the EPA Brownfield Job Training Grant, and that's I think they've changed that to be $500,000 for a 3 or 5 year term. So it used to be $200,000 that you would get, and they now allow you to pay stipends to participants as well. So they've really listened to the grantees for the Brownfield Job Training Grant. So I would encourage people to look into that program. And then in terms of funding all of our ground core and everything, it's either fee for service where we get contracts. We just got our first state contract with the Department of Transportation in Rhode Island to repair and then maintain bioswales that are in another part of the state that we don't typically work in. So, and then we get, other organizations contract us to build green infrastructure installations. We get a lot of EPA funding. The Southern New England program I was talking about with focused on watersheds and stormwater management. The Forest Service, we get funding to do tree planting. So it's all a lot of federal grants. For our composting program, it's more private foundations, and we've just more recently got into federal grants with that.
For us, yeah, we have several funding sources. The city funds us. We get funded through AmeriCorps. We have some foundation grants. Some of it is we are entering like fee for service work as well. And then because we are youth, violence prevention program as well, we get funding for some of the supports and things that we offer. So like altogether, we get funded by a number of different sources, some, local foundation and, state and federal as well.
Yep. Very similar to both of y'all as well. Primarily coming in AmeriCorps, NYCHA being one of the other primaries, and then again with the grant writing, both local as well as some state.
Great, thank you. And there were some resources that were shared in the chat by participants as well for funding sources for anybody. Whenever there's a very active chat like this, sometimes we put out a summary of questions and answers. And so I imagine that we'll be doing that for this one as well. There were two questions that I kind of want to bundle together. Let me see. Are there options for people without a high school diploma? And I want to also pair that with the Philly program appears to have programs for returning citizens, i.e. formerly incarcerated. Do the New York and Rhode Island programs work with returning citizens as well?
Yes. Yes, we do. But the first question, remind me the first question again.
Working with people who don't have a high school diploma.
Copy. We on our end, we're good with like like GED or equivalent. That's usually the only cutoff. Or not even cutoff, but that's probably the main qualifier. We do have folks that are coming in who are either returning citizens, or they might be actually court involved at the time. And so yeah, I mean, it's something that I think if just working with our population, it comes with the territory. And that's where we work with very closely with our social work team, to make sure that folks have access to resources, so they can navigate through those barriers. It shows up, pretty often, and makes getting through a service term pretty difficult. Because again, it's a commitment, right? Six months, and usually these are also hours-based programs. I would imagine Amelia and Devin kind of similar, right? If you're working with a core, and so yeah, we take that into consideration for our members. If anything, trying to find ways to be a resource, so that folks that are coming in, that's not something that kind of continues to drag them down, if you will.
In Rhode Island, we do work with people who are formerly incarcerated, and I would say 75% of the people that we work with in the adult program are 50 to 75%, depending on the program, are formerly incarcerated. And then in terms of the high school degree, we for our youth program, that's not an issue because they're in high school and they're going to graduate. But for our adult program, we do encourage people, and we try to connect them with other organizations who can help them with GED if they don't already have a high school diploma, because that is sort of an important baseline.
Yeah, for PowerCore PHL, we yeah, people do have to have a high school diploma or GED to get into the program, but we do work with alternative high schools such as like Youth Build to recruit individuals from there, and then we work with other programs to help people to be able to get their high school and GED if they don't have it. We just don't have it in our program to be able to support people to do that, and so we use partnerships to be able to get people those resources before they, come into our program.
That's great. This is an interesting question. Do you or any programs you know of have partnerships or fostering? And the context here is we don't have the local resources or trained workforce to take on mentoring, but a high population of underemployment or court-involved youth who would be interested in these types of programs.
The things that we do, we chose the things that we do, landscaping and composting, because it's pretty, we can do it. We have some people who are on our staff who are trained. We have a landscape architect who's on our staff, and he has a construction background, so he knows how to do the depaving and all the safety things and that you need to know. But composting, we just sort of learned it from other organizations and YouTube and through trial and error. And so there are ways to do it if you can find that grant funding to start out with very entry level work where you don't have to have an expert, who knows it. It's someone who can learn to be an expert, but you don't have to start out that way. Is my opinion on certain aspects of the stuff that we're doing, at least in Rhode Island.
I'm trying to look at the question again, make sure I'm answering it correctly. I mean, we have like staff that are doing some of the more technical training. Some of the training is transferable. So like even if they're not going into that specific industry, it is transferable to other industries as well. And then we partner with other like local organizations to help with some of the supportive service needs, and with employer partners as well for some of the technical training. And so I think I don't know the area you're from, but a lot of times we've been working with like employers or local utility departments to figure out solutions for their needs, and sometimes it's joint fundraising. If they're saying there's needs that aren't met, and we have the workforce for joint fundraising to get money to be able to support bringing on those positions or paying people to provide that technical training.
Stephen, anything to add?
Sure. I mean, I know I heard mentorship was a little bit earlier, just in terms of, with folks coming in and entering the workspace. And so there's, I think on our end, a lot of the mentorship this is like a tall order, but I feel like we tend to do on our end by way of like our Green City Academy sessions. And that's where we tap pretty heavily into the social work team and the career services team to kind of offer up all of like the workforce development and personal development that comes with it. And then from a partnership perspective, um, I, most of our partners that we work with to get to secure certification. So when we're looking at our OSHA, as well as getting the driver's license, we tend to work with organizations that also work with similar populations. Because again, there just tends to be different types of barriers for folks, coming in. And so we want all of our members to have as many options as possible when coming through. And it's sometimes it's tough to be everything for everyone. And so we do actually have to not rely, but we tap into our partners where we can, either by way of getting members corrected directly, or we bring them into our sessions so that they're a part of the service experience, if you will.
Great, thank you for that. Amelia, there's a question in the chat that I wonder if you could answer there. And then I just have one last question. If you had just one main piece of advice that you'd give to anybody pursuing, development of workforce program, and maybe in 30 seconds to a minute, what would your sage piece of wisdom be?
Should I answer that question first from Lydia, and then do that, or?
Either way, if you want to just type in the chat the answer to that one, that would be fine.
Okay, it's like I have to email her. It's a really awesome question. I just want to say it. So things are way too over-engineered in green infrastructure, and sometimes, not always, but there's a ton that can be done. We have a landscape architect who's on our staff. He has a construction background. He's amazing. But he gets paid like way less than an engineer to do a lot of similar quality work. I'm happy if please email me arose@groundworkri.org, and we work with the city engineer. We work with engineers all the time. Oftentimes the engineer puts a stamp on it, on a design that our director of field operations puts together, or we just do there are ways to do it to not have to subcontract out. There's all sorts of ways to do lower engineered solutions. And I'll let someone else answer the advice part.
For the advice part, I think my advice would be just to make whatever training or design like human-centered, and making it about the members that in your community that you're trying to serve, and trying to get those supports in place. And then I think just partnerships, like you don't have to do it all on your own, and trying to build out that, whether it's government, whether it's other communities, organizations or employers, trying to get partners to be a part of it.
Yeah, I love it. It's like very similar all around. Members first, honestly, for us. That's I think that comes front and center. Yeah, members first, honestly, and that we're heavily focused on bringing our members in. And so I think the structure and everything that we're doing kind of goes back to what it is that best serves our members. And be patient. Folks are coming into a space, and and I think when it comes to like workforce development, youth development, people are learning. And so some folks are learning what it means to show up on time. Some people are learning what it means to not burn themselves out. Some people are learning what it means, to just put a smile on their face, when they might be having whatever the case is. And so folks are learning, and a lot of patience goes a long way. Encourage the curiosity. I'll stop there.
can I add one thing? Since I didn't answer before, which is just that I think the biggest thing that I've learned in not having had a workforce development background before I came into Groundwork Rhode Island is just the importance of self-esteem as like the basis for all of this work. When we talk about the people that we're serving, particularly people who are returning citizens, just like I think that's the biggest thing is like it's a long-term investment, and it's showing people that they are worth investing in. So I think that for us, it's like that people don't typically graduate from our program. They can kind of stay with us for a long time. And oftentimes people need it that, not just 8 weeks of our training program, but they need 3 years or they need 7 years of being on our crew or something like that. And yeah, so I think that I would lift up that patience piece, but also like that emotional component that I think is missing when we talk about job training and like getting people into high paying jobs. It's like there's a baseline that you have to meet first.
Thank you all so much. I think all of that was just like you just emphasized the point so beautifully. I'm like, I want to quote you all. But thank you so much to Stephen, Amelia, and Devin for presenting today. And thank you for everyone who joined us over the last 6 months and all your great questions that you threw in the chat. Just want to mention a couple of things before we wrap up. In case you missed it, the new EPA community change grants make $2 billion available for initiatives that increase climate resilience, reducing greenhouse gases, including workforce development programs. So please check that out. Connect with us. We sent around some, interest in networking or that poll. If you didn't get a chance to fill it out, drop your name in the chat and we'll make sure you get on that list. Please fill out the evaluation survey. We really appreciate it. It only helps make webinars better for you and everyone else. And yeah, if you want to connect with us and learn about more opportunities of the Urban Waters Learning Network, please join our online community. And I believe all these links should be in the chat for you all. So yeah, thank you so much to everyone. And Renee, Stephen, Amelia, Devin, again, thank you.